Hi everybody, welcome to Paranormal Zone TV, a live broadcast on YouTube. I want to thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And for those who may be new to the show, if you would please subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Now, before we start the show, I just want to let you know that 2024 starts our 16th year of Paranormal Zone TV. And tonight, my favorite of all favorite guests is Reverend Bill Bean. And I have to tell you a little story. Years ago, somebody asked me, they said, hey, you should have Bill Bean on your show. And I said, well, that name sounds familiar to me. And they said, yeah, you know him. He was on The Haunting. I said, oh, is that Bill Bean? And I said, oh my God, okay, well, I'll try and get him on the show. I don't know if he will or not, but I'll try and get him. And I contacted Reverend Bill Bean, and sure enough, he came on the show. I can't remember how I contacted him. It might have been through Facebook. I'm not quite sure. But our first show with Reverend Bill Bean was in November of 2014, and that was the title of the show, Terrifying Tragic Story, A Home Possessed by Evil. And what a show that was. So tonight my guest is my favorite, Bill Bean. He has written, let me get rid of this. So Bill Bean is an author, he's a spiritual warrior, and he performs exorcisms and spiritual deliverance for people from all over America and the world. He has been involved in every type of case imaginable. He has dedicated his life to helping others battling demonic forces. Reverend Bill Bean's journey has been one of both darkness and light. His latest published book, My Life, is our topic tonight. He will share with us his journey with the supernatural, divine, and demonic encounters. And with that, let's welcome Bill Bean. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Noreen. Thank you so much. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be on with you. It's just amazing when we, talk about this being the 12th appearance on your amazing show. It's just, I thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And happy 2024. And I hope that you and your family had a wonderful Christmas, and may this new year of 2024 be a fantastic year for you and your family, and for your viewers and listeners as well.
Oh, thank you, Bill, and the same to you. This book was amazing. I want to tell everybody that I read the Reverend Bill was so kind as to send me a PDF file of the book. It's really hard for me to read books because I'm so busy with my life, and especially with all the holidays. But he sent it to me, and I started reading. I started the first page, and I ended up on the 14th before he went into his chapters. I could not put it down. I've never in my life read anything like that, and I had no idea. I've just felt, honest to God, I almost started crying. I felt so bad what he went through, and the trauma and the tragedy and the demonic attacks that he had been through. And I knew things were bad when he first came on our show years ago, talking about the things that were happening in that home. But I didn't realize how bad it really was. And you don't know how bad it is until you read his book. I have no words. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's compelling. You have to read it. It's fabulous. Bill, Reverend Bill, I'm sorry. I've known you for so long.
You can call me Bill.
So tell the viewers. Now, I don't want to I know what's in the book, and I don't want to reveal it. It's up to you as to what you want to share with the viewers tonight. But they need to know some of the tragedy that you've gone through.
Yeah, it was, and thank you, Noreen. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to read some of it. And then thank you for your kind words as well, and sharing your thoughts and feelings about, how moving and compelling it was for you to, even engage in it as you started reading. And it's all true. And the way I look at it now, and believe believe me, it was hell. It was a hellish existence. But I look back on it now, and I understand it, that I couldn't be where I'm at right now in helping others had I not been there to suffer. So I believe that God allowed some of those things to happen as part of a preparation process. So if I went to a person that was suffering, being spiritually tormented, and if I went to that person and if I didn't have the experience, then we wouldn't be able to come together, because when people suffer that level of trauma and abuse, they won't open up to anybody and they won't trust anybody. But if they understand and realize that the person that has come to help them has gone through similar things, then a bond can be formed. And that's what's happened so many times, Noreen, throughout my career, is that people understand that I've been there, so they can open up to me, they can trust me, and we can establish a bond.
Oh, absolutely.
And then God can work through me to help free them from the evil that is upon them. So it was really a necessary part of my journey, although I wish that there were some things that I could change, especially, if I could suddenly go back in time and change things, it would be, the number one thing would be the sufferings of my mother, who suffered worse than any other person I've ever seen in my life. And I've been involved in thousands of cases of people suffering from all over the world. And I've seen a lot of suffering, throughout my career as well. But I haven't seen anybody suffer as much as my mother did for such a lengthy period of time before her untimely death. So it was very, very difficult. It was, so, I talk about also in the book, I feel that, and let me say this, I'm not better than anybody else. I am a human being just like everybody else. I make mistakes just like everybody else. I try not to, but I'm a human being. We all make mistakes from time to time. That said, I believe very strongly that before I came into this world, God had an assignment for me, if that makes any sense. I believe that He had put this assignment on me to be a spiritual warrior, to help people. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know it until I had an epiphany one day and decided to make God first in my life, and then everything progressed from there. But looking back, and I wrote about this in the book, there were some instances, Noreen, from the beginning that one was absolutely bizarre, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, and most of my relatives are gone now, so I'll never get the true answer as to what happened. One was when I was an infant, a newborn. The story is that somehow, and I just can't wrap my head around this, but the story was that a piece of hair from one of the nurses wrapped around one of my toes, and it actually severed the toe. I just can't wrap my head around that, but I can tell you this. I have a scar around that goes completely in circumference around that toe to this day. And, I was told that the toe was severed. Mm. They had to put the toe, reattach the toe. Now, this is a new, being a newborn. I just can't wrap my head around a piece of hair, being around the toe in that manner, and it would have to be for length of time to cut into the skin to sever. So who knows what the real story is, but that's the story that I was told. Yeah. And then as, I believe, a 2-year-old, I suffered a major head injury. I was told that I'd run into some type of wooden divider, and I recall my uncle telling me that they just were continuously wrapping towels around my head because of the massive amounts of blood that was coming out. So those were two things right from the beginning that, I believe the devil was truly making an attempt to harm me and to really basically kill me and get me off of this earth before I could be in the position as this spiritual warrior to where God wanted and needed me to be.
Yeah, you said that you began having paranormal, supernatural, divine, and demonic experiences at the age of 5.
Yeah, and furthermore, and I have these photos in the book. I didn't put very many. If I could have, I could put a ton of photos in, but I put a couple in. And 2 of the photos that I added in, one took place in 1968, and I was 2 years old. And this must have been, I guess, after that accident that I had as a child. My sister and I are seated behind a toy piano. It's Christmas time, 1968. My sister was 11, and she's to my left, and then to her left appears to be this very tall, black hooded entity in the photograph. So that's 1968 at age 2. And then the following year, at age 3, in 1969, my father had taken a Polaroid photo of me, and it should have been a little 3-year-old boy standing in front of the bushes. And it was as if a dimensional doorway was opened at the moment he snapped the picture, because there were all these other beings and entities in the photograph. There were 3 humanoid-looking entities standing behind me in single file, different heights, different looks. There was a very tall being that had the look of a lion that was over top of my head. There was what appeared to be a little gray alien being to my left, and to the left of that, it appeared to be the face of what we would call a Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Sabe creature. And then throughout the photograph, in through the brush, were many different types of faces and beings. So what an amazing photo. And that's 1969, a Polaroid photograph.
I have.
And go ahead, Noreen,
I have that picture, but do you want me to see if I can fit it in?
Yeah,
let me see if I can get it in.
Go right ahead and show anything that you have. Yeah, absolutely.
I've got to put it in. Go ahead and keep talking. Let me see if I can get this in there.
So we see, and I didn't know this until 2005. I never knew those photographs existed, but my wife and I were visiting my sister Christmas time. It was like Christmas Eve of 2005. And she asked if I wanted some of my mother's old family photographs. She had, after my mother had passed away, neither of my parents lived to see the age of 50. And after my mother had passed away, my sister had all those photographs. And we started looking through photographs. And I said, sure, I'd like to have some. And so she gave me a box full of photographs. And when we got home that night, I had the photographs on the table, and I started looking through. And Noreen, I was absolutely just shocked to see some of the photographs that I saw. I couldn't believe my eyes that, my mother obviously had saved these photographs because they had significance as far as having this paranormal, supernatural activity, in the photos. And so that's how I came to know that those photos existed. And they had dates on the back, and the first one was 1968, and then the Polaroid was 1969, and then other photographs as well. There were other very disturbing photos that I had discovered in my mother's photo collection. Okay,
I found it.
Okay.
Yes, and
actually, it's an amazing photograph.
Let me see if I can. I'm going to enlarge it so they'll hear you. I'm going to have it over your face, our faces, so
sure.
You can. All right. So I remember, because I actually saved our photos, from all those shows that we had.
Oh yeah, so you've got a ton of stuff.
I do. And so I outlined the where that's like a bluish color, and I pointed out I have arrows all over the place, and then.
Yes, I remember that now. Mm-hmm.
And then behind it, there's another image behind. There's like 3 images on top of one another, And then I have, let's see, what does this say? Something in the the lion's head in the bushes.
Yeah. It's just absolutely astounding. I mean, I can't explain that photograph. This is 1969, a Polaroid photo. Just an absolutely astounding photograph, and the best way to describe it would be to say that perhaps at that moment in time, that dimensional doorway was open, and all of those beings and entities manifested at the time of the photo.
Wow. Now, you talk a lot about your mother, and where the alien, there was an alien in the room with her. Now, you had mentioned about this dark cloak. I have that picture.
Yes.
Let me show that picture.
And that being looks to be at least 7 feet tall. It's very, very tall. And yes, the other photo that you're talking about of it was actually 2 alien beings in the photograph with my mother. That was taken in 1975.
All right, well, hold on.
In that house.
Okay, I'm showing them the cloak.
Okay.
I don't know if this was the original one you had sent me, but I believe it is. This cloaked person is by a window, a glass window with panes, and they're right next to the window.
And you can see the hood, you can see the black cloak.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, again, that is a very disturbing photograph because, you think that you're seeing 2 innocent children, in the photo and nothing more. And then, when you look to my sister's left like that and see that entity, I mean, it is just, boy, when I first saw that, I came unglued. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
That's really scary. Now, there's another pic I have. Let's see. It's your mother. Let me see if I can find that. Oh, here it is. Okay, hold on. It's your mother. I'm having problems tonight with my pictures.
Okay. And it's amazing, Noreen, because those the prior photos, the previous photos that we've just discussed,
here it is.
They were taken before we moved into that house. So we moved into that house in 1970. So it clearly shows that something was going on, even before moving into that house. And that goes back to my what I was told was that over 100 years ago, 2 family members actually conjured up those demonic forces through ritual invitation and invocation, and those entities did come in. Those demonic entities did come in. They greatly affected the family on both sides of my family, and caused a variety of damage and destruction and even death. I believe that those entities contributed into several or more deaths of family members.
I have that picture up, and I have the arrows. I remember we labeled it UFO and aliens. There's a mirror behind your mother. She's eating, and I don't know if that's a bar or a kitchen table. And then behind her, I believe there's a door with a window, and there's another image in there. I remember that now. And there were all kind of photos like this. I didn't know those photos existed until I started going through the collection in 2005, and I was astounded. I had no idea that those photos even existed. Now, you talked about your relatives conjured up the demons. How did they do that?
Through ritual invitation and invocation.
But
I was
where?
told this by family members. So, and I can believe it because when you have this type of thing taking place to such a severe level as what took place throughout, then it had to be some type of, when it manifests that strongly and it's that severe, in most cases it's either manifested by such a high level of trauma or that level of ritual invitation or invocation? Did they do it through a Ouija board? I don't know. Did they just simply do it by a summoning? I don't know. I wasn't there, but I can believe it, and I certainly have every reason to believe the family member that told me that. And so it is very, very interesting when you look back on it, and it's also plausible. I can absolutely see how that could happen, if you had the seriousness and that level of intent to open the door for those demonic forces to come in. Now, my question after that would be, why? Why would you? Were you black magicians? What were I don't know. I don't know who they were or what they were. Obviously, I never met them. But were they practicing black magic or something? I don't know.
Okay, but it wasn't in your house. It was at another location. So how could those demons go your way if they're doing this at another location?
Well, what happens is when that type of thing takes place, those entities are invited in, and now they will come on to the family. So it's not only going to affect the ones that invited them in, it's going to affect the entire, everybody connected to them. Yes. I call it a spiritual virus. So they will go on to the family or families, and everybody that's connected to the source. And furthermore, I believe that my parents were led to that house where evil was already present and manifest before, on its own, independently, not cojoined with the evil that was conjured. And I think also that's why it was so severe, is that when we got to that house and were led to that house by demonic forces, the evil that was already present and manifest in the home and in the area then did co-join with the evil that was attached to my parents and the family. And that was a perfect storm to create a level of dysfunction and destruction that is rarely seen in any of these types of cases.
Now, you had mentioned curses in your book.
Yeah.
Is this all part of a curse, do you believe, or is this something else?
Yes, it is part of it would be something like that, Maureen, would be under family bloodline curse, because now, by the fact that these demonic forces were conjured, now that has affected the entire family line going forward, so that would fall under family bloodline curse.
Oh my goodness. Now, you had also mentioned you have been involved in every imaginable paranormal experience, whether it's divine or demonic. Do you want to talk about some of those?
Sure. I mean, I've had many experiences with angels, and to this day, my experiences, I still have supernatural experiences, and they are angelic, divine experiences. I do still have a plethora of UFO experiences and sightings as well. And in some of those sightings, I've stood there at the window while these objects hovered out there for anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. Planes can't do that. And if copters were hovering like that, you'd hear the noise, and these things don't make any noise. And there were times that I would test the spirits, because the Bible tells us to test the spirits. And by testing them, you bind and rebuke and cast them out. And I'd say, by the mighty power of Yahweh, in Yahshua Jesus Christ's name, I bind and rebuke you and command you to depart at once. And they did not go. So at that point, I tested the spirit, and I believe they're divine after that, because they did not go. So then I stand there and start praising God. Mm-hmm. And God's name is Yahweh, listed 6,823 times in the Bible, replaced with the title of Lord. So I'd say, Father Yahweh, I thank you and praise you for everything. And every time I did that, the objects they were white in color, and they would expand. The lights would just absolutely, would be like bursting every time I gave praise and thanks to God. So they would respond with this tremendous increase in the light. So that, this is recent, over the last few years that I've had experiences like this, and I praise God for it. So I've had many divine, angelic experiences. I have been saved. God has saved my life so many times, Noreen. I've been in so many life-threatening situations throughout the course of my lifetime, and several as a spiritual warrior, going into the homes of people. Some wanted to shoot me. Some tried to stab me, slash me, bite me, physically attack me, spit on me. I've had people vomit on me. You just wouldn't believe it. And through it all, God has kept me safe and protected. I've had other experiences that were demonic, that I felt like my life was in danger. And that started at age 5. So I was being physically attacked by demonic forces between ages 5 and 12. Now, can you imagine? And this was on a regular basis. And after each attack, I felt like I had the flu. My body ached. I had high fevers. It just felt horrible. And it was something that I wouldn't wish on anybody, and it created such a level of trauma that if my mom and I were in the house alone and she had to use the bathroom, I'd sit outside the bathroom door until she came out. I mean, it was that bad. And she suffered worse than I did. So my little sufferings were nothing compared to the level of what her sufferings were. And so that's how things started out. And even back then, I had this, what I believe to be an angel, that came many times and saved me as the attack was intensifying on me. This lady that I believed was an angelic lady would manifest, and when she manifested, all the horrible things stopped, and I felt such love and peace and comfort and protection from her. It was just amazing, and the most amazing part about that was that the angelic being looked exactly like my mother.
Really?
Just amazing, Noreen. And she also saved my mother. So can you imagine, A, you're being attacked physically by demonic forces, seen and unseen over the years. B, you have this angelic entity that manifests and saves you and stops the attack, and yet the being, the entity, looks exactly like you. I couldn't imagine. I know personally what I thought, when this being manifested and she looked exactly like my mother. I mean, I was astounded, and after it was over with, I jumped out of my bed and ran out of my bed and ran into the bedroom, and my parents were in bed asleep. Oh. So it was certainly not my mother there. Yeah. And then can you imagine, having that old attack, and then this being manifest that stops everything and saves you and looks exactly like you. I mean, just, and my mom and I weren't the only one to see her. Other family members saw her as well, and friends also over the years. So there's a lot of witnesses to what took place in that house over a 10-year period. And when I'd written the first book, Dark Force, I sat down to write that. That was the most difficult book that I've ever written. So this new book is my 11th book. Right. The first one, I got to the point to where it was so emotionally draining and upsetting that I thought about just stopping, that I couldn't do it. And I had to pray about it and ask God to help me, because I had to place myself back in that and relive those events. And it was very, very disturbing. And I praise God for helping me to be strong enough to relive that so I could give an account of it to the best of my ability and capability, to the best of my recollections of what had taken place there. And it was tough, Noreen. It was very, very tough. And even in writing the new book, again, which is the 11th book, it was still a little tough going back and writing and rewriting about some of those events that took place. You know, it's when you have that level of trauma and things that took place on a regular basis, that the devil absolutely assigned demons to us to try and destroy us, and he really accomplished the mission as far as destroying the family unit, and he nearly destroyed me as well. And I thank God and praise God for saving me and for transforming my life to work through me now as a spiritual warrior to help people. But boy, was it ever a journey to get there.
Oh my God. Oh, I can imagine. Now, your demonic, the demonic appearances and attacks started when you were 11 or 12. Can you tell us what those were like?
Well, the attack started when I was 5, and that was
demonic
in 1971.
attacks?
That was the first demonic attack that I had sustained, and and this happened after my sister. So my sister was the first to have a demonic attack take place in the house, and it was in 1970 after moving in. She was in her bed asleep one night, and let me give a quick layout here of the house. The house was located at the bottom of a downhill cul-de-sac in Glen Burnie, Maryland, in a community called Herondale. And the house was semi-dilapidated. My father, William Bean Sr., was a master carpenter, and he saw it as a restoration project. So my mother, Patricia Bean, was a homemaker, and she was the first one to have an encounter in the house, but it was a feeling of presence and then a door slamming, and that made her go outside and wait until we returned. So that was the first experience and encounter. But later in that year, my sister was asleep in her bed, and so we would walk in through the front door. There was a coat closet at the entry as you're coming in that had these sliding wooden doors. There was dark brown paneling on the walls, so the house was always very dark. And you're in the living room, and then there was a coat closet to the right, but my father had taken that out and he made it into a bar. And so you would make a right down this long hallway, which had hard tile floor and the dark brown paneling on the walls. And my brother and I shared the first room on the right. My parents' room was the second room on the right, and my sister's room was the last room on the left across the hallway. I believe that was the main portal in the house, Noreen. That room was cold even on the hottest of summer days, and that's also the room where the door would open and slam for many repetitions at a time. So my sister was asleep in her bed one night. She was awakened by something that she could not see. She was scared. And she knew something was there, but she couldn't see anything or anyone. And she was going to get out of bed and get my parents. And when she did, something grabbed her leg.
Oh.
And she let out a scream. Thank God she was able to scream.
Oh, yeah.
And that woke my parents. They ran into the room. They turned the light on. Did not see anyone or anything. However, they found my sister curled up in a fetal position, and she had red marks on her leg where she said something grabbed her leg. And my sister never again felt comfortable in the house. She always felt like she was being watched, and she would end up running away late one night to get married to a young man in the neighborhood, and she just wanted to be out of that house. So she, within the first couple of years, by 1973, she was out of there. And but so her attack happened in 1970, and then in 1971, I was 5 years old, and much like my sister, I was asleep in bed. My brother's bed was closest to the window. My bed was closest to the doorway and the hallway, and something woke me from my sleep. I could not see anyone or anything, but I certainly could feel the presence. And like my sister, I got scared, and I was getting out of bed to my left, and a tremendous force grabbed me by my shoulders and slammed me back on the bed, pinned me to the bed. I could not move. I cannot describe, and I've probably given well over 2,500 interviews in my career, and each and every time, I say this, I can't accurately describe in words the level of fear and trauma that I was under at that point in time. I felt like my heart was jumping out of my body. I felt like I was going to die. I wanted to scream out for my parents, but my mouth wouldn't work. Nothing would. The only thing that seemed to be working were my eyes. Everything else was paralyzed. And it seemed like this was happening in slow motion. It seemed like that it was taking forever, all these things that took place. And then during the course of this, that angelic lady that I had described suddenly appeared and manifested. And when she did, all of the horrible things that were happening to me suddenly stopped. And that lady stood there at the foot of my bed, gazing at me, smiling, comforting me. And I was calming down because I could feel the love and the positive presence and the level of protection. And then she turned to her left and floated up through the ceiling. And so that is how it all started for me. And that continued from age 5 in 1971 to age 12. And then by age 13 in 1979, that's the first time that I actually fought back against those demonic forces, and that was the first battle that I had engaged in against demonic forces.
So that was your first battle. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you want to talk about this or not, but didn't your mom have a seance done in the house?
Yes, she did, and she was at her wit's end. So I'll back up a little bit. My dad was a great man. Both my parents were great people, but my father was blessed with gifts and abilities that should have made him highly successful in life. There was nothing that he couldn't do, Noreen. His dad was a master craftsman and carpenter and put my dad and his older brother to work. I believe my dad was 10 and his brother was 11. And so he put them to work at a very young age. I mean, hard construction work. And so both my dad and his brother were just, they were masters at anything and everything that they put their minds to. And they could tear an engine apart and put it back together. They could build a house from the ground up. They could do anything and be successful at it. But unfortunately for him, he was a good man who made terrible choices. And so my parents were married in 1956. My sister was born in 1957. Another child was born in 1963 that died under mysterious circumstances. I never could get to the bottom of what happened. I do know that it was a male child, and I do know that he didn't live for long. And I also know that representatives of Johns Hopkins Hospital came to retrieve that body for studies.
Oh, no way.
Yes. And I later, probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I contacted Johns Hopkins to try and get a report. And they told me that they don't keep records that old and they couldn't help me.
Oh.
Absolutely amazing. So I was born in 1966, and my brother was born in 1969. So my parents were social drinkers. So back in that era, families had house parties, people smoked, and they socially drank and all that. And that's what it was. But once we got into the house and these supernatural events began taking place on a regular basis, something had changed in my dad. He was a very he was a good man, but he was a very rugged individual. He was a man that was used to being in control of every situation, and he suddenly found himself in a situation that he could not control. And I really believe, and I'm not making excuses for him, but I'm just giving an analogy of what I believe took place, is that I think that it confounded him so much that he couldn't control the situation. And my parents believed in God, but we didn't have any faith-based upbringing, never attended church or anything like that as children. But I think that he found himself in a situation that he couldn't control. Therefore, his drinking escalated from social drinking to alcoholism, escaping reality through alcoholism, and he turned into a raging alcoholic who began physically abusing my mother on a regular basis between 1973 and 1975. Nearly killed her on several occasions, and I can recall having to run out of the house to a neighbor's to get the police called on him because he was killing my mother. I mean, the amount of trauma and bloodletting that took place in that house, off the charts. And you know, I've come to know this, Noreen, that when a person is under the influence of alcohol and or a drug, the frequency and vibration is lowered. So all life operates on frequency and vibration. So, and the reason for that is because when God spoke the world into existence, he did so by the frequency and vibration of his voice. Therefore, all life operates on that principle. So when our frequency and vibration is on high, life is good, life is positive, we're moving forward. But when we're on low, life is terrible. And it's like a black clouds over someone's head. And there's always a problem, a situation, a drama, and never an answer. And that's exactly what was taking place. So when people are on that low frequency and low vibration, they're wide open and vulnerable for demonic attack. And furthermore, when a person is under the influence of alcohol, that is the spirit of al-Kul. So the Egyptian, so the English word alcohol is derived from the word al-Kul, al-Ghul, which means flesh-eating demon. That's what it means. That's why when you see on the signs beer, wine, and spirits, there are spirits attached to that. And there's nothing wrong with a person if they want to go and have a couple drinks at dinner, or, you know, 2 or 3 drinks if they're social. There's nothing wrong with that. But what happens is when you cross the line after, say, 2 or 3 drinks, and the person becomes under the influence, well, now their frequency and vibration is lowered and they're wide open for demonic attack and manipulation. The same thing with drugs. So when a person is abusing drugs, that is the spirit of pharmakia, which is sorcery. So it is giving legal right to the devil to come in and send those demons in to create a variety of damage. So I firmly believe, based on my eyewitness accounts and sightings of what was taking place there, I believe that when my father was under the influence of alcohol, that those demons came in and fueled his rage against my mother. And it's miraculous that he didn't kill her. So it's just amazing. As bad as things were, and the amount of things that we suffered through and endured, God was still there, keeping it from going to the worst level, and that would have been death. And so for many years, I hated my father. I had a burning hatred towards him for what he had done to my mother. And then he left us in 1975. I was 9 years old. He left us. He had moved to Florida, went to work with his brother, my Uncle Clifford, who was a devout Christian. He owned a construction company down there in Florida. And when he left, my mother came under regular physical attack from those demonic entities, to the point to where she could no longer sleep in her bed because they were attacking her on such a regular basis, choking her. My mother had cuts, bruises, bite marks, scratches on her long after my dad had left. And so she ended up having to sleep in with my brother and I because it was so bad for her it's suffering these attacks. So it was really hellish, Noreen. And when you're living under that type of fear and trauma on a daily basis, I've described it in the past as just being like you're so mentally worn down that you come to expect these things and you accept them as normal. So you almost take it in stride because now you've accepted it as being a part of quote unquote normal life.
Isn't it possible, since your house was so bad and infested with so much evil, that that's possibly why your dad turned to alcoholism? Because
absolutely, yeah, 100%. Yep. And so I took the long way around on your question. Your question was about the seance.
Right.
My mother was just at her wit's end, so she had this friend, and the medium came in and they performed the seance, and then disturbing things happened through the seance, as this medium made contact. And it was, I think one message was there are 4 here, and the other message was join us or die. So the medium stopped everything after that and concluded the session and urged my mother to get out of there, and that, these were evil forces. Obviously we knew that because we were under such attack for so long. We knew that it was evil. And so that was it, and at that point in time, my mother had a new man in her life, and I think that was around the year 1978, and his name was Richard. And Richard was very much like my dad, rugged, tough guy, former boxer, very strong guy, wasn't afraid of anyone or anything, but yet was physically attacked in the house. And I failed to mention that my dad was also physically attacked in the house, and I didn't know this. I didn't know this until, I'd say, probably about 6 years ago. My brother, who still suffers from PTSD from this, he does not like to talk about it at all. And one day I was over at his house, and he just mentioned this out of the blue. I don't even know how we got to the sub, because we never talk about it. And he mentioned out of the blue about our father being attacked. And he said, no, I was not there, but I believe him 100%. He has no reason to lie, and he doesn't even like to talk about these things. He told me that my dad, and I was staying with my grandmother for the night, so I was not there, but he said he was sitting on the couch. My dad had come home in a drunken stupor, walked in the front door, was not in there no more than a few seconds when suddenly an unseen force grabbed him, picked him up in the air, and threw him right through the closet doors that right there at the front coat closet. And my brother saw it, and he told me that, and I have no reason to doubt anything that he said. And he said that my father was, yes, he was under the influence, and he didn't trip and stumble into it. He was picked up. My brother specified, he was specific in saying that something picked him up off of his feet and threw him through those doors. And so, again, being under that level of attack, and I think that in the beginning it certainly was designed to get my father out of there, and I wrote a chapter about that in the book called Removing the Strong One. Yeah. So if you get the strongest one, the dad, the authority figure, the rock, the tough one, if you get him out of the picture, then it's going to be much easier to work on and destroy the other family members. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your dad. So your dad was finally attacked and his personality changed. I consider that a personality change. And now your brother, was he attacked as well? He was attacked as well.
Well, there's a time that, now I personally saw this. There's one night that I was in my bed. I woke up from my sleep and I look over, and that angelic lady is laying beside my brother in his bed as he's sleeping. So I wouldn't call that an attack. I would call it a protection. Right. But the bed was floating off the floor.
Oh, no.
Yeah, absolutely. And my brother also, to this day, he would never give an interview. I'm probably the only person that he talks to about this, and he doesn't talk about it often. He just can't bring himself to do it. But he did describe another incident. I was in school that day, and he and my mother were home. He stayed home. He was sick that day. And my mother was in her bedroom ironing clothes, and he was laying down in our room. And oftentimes, Noreen, the faucets would turn on in the bathroom and kitchen, and they would turn on with such force that it would flood and saturate the areas in the bathroom and the kitchen. And on this day, the bathroom faucets turned on. My mother and brother obviously were alerted by that. He gets up out of bed. He's advancing, and she stopped ironing. She's advancing towards the bathroom, which was off the hallway. And all of a sudden, they hear this tremendous breaking of glass, and it was a loud boom. And so now, I guess my mother quickly turns off the faucets, and they race up the hallway, and they would have to make a right. So at the end of the hallway, if you made a right, you would be in the dining room, and to the right of that was a small galley kitchen, but at the end of the dining room was the back door. And so they race up the hallway, and they see, so the interior back door was open. The storm door, which was made of like metal, and it had glass in the, I guess that would be the majority of it. So the bottom part, I think, was metal and metal frame, and it had glass in it. And the glass was shattered out of the storm door.
Oh, no.
Now, the most amazing thing is the glass was shattered from the inside out. So it was blown out from the inside out. There was glass laying all over the back porch. So whatever happened there, and whatever force manifested that, demonic force, they blew the glass out from the inside out.
Oh, how long did you live in this house?
We lived in that house for 10 years, and I don't know how we did it. So we moved in there in 1970, and we moved out in December of 1980. And, I say in the book, and I've said in other books too, again, you become conditioned to things. My outlet was sports. I was a good athlete, and I was involved in a variety of sports, and I was the first guy on the field and the last guy to leave the field because I didn't want to go home. Oh. And there were even times that my dad, so after we had gotten there, he did renovations to the house. He made the house look nice. He built a garage, and as part of the garage, he put a backboard and a rim and a net so I could play basketball there. And I did. Many times I'd be out there, my brother, neighborhood kids. I was always organizing all the sports events in the neighborhood, but there were also times that I would be out there just shooting hoops by myself. And I could be out there for an hour. I could be out there for 2 hours. And then all of a sudden, Noreen, this presence would be there with me. I could not see it, but I could feel it. And it would I'd drop the ball, and it would chase me into the house.
Oh my God, really?
This happened so many times. Just unbelievable. So there was never a break in the trauma. There was never, so it makes sense to me now. Being where I'm at right now as a spiritual deliverance minister, exorcist, spiritual warrior, whatever you want to call me, it makes perfect sense to me because I've acquired this knowledge now as to how these demonic forces work. And that is a part of the game plan to keep a person under constant stress and pressure,
right.
fear, trauma. this all keeps the person on low frequency, low vibration, so the attacks can continue. So the key to everything, and I've come to learn this, believe me, through my own experiences and through how God has worked through me to free others from these things, is that the greatest thing that we can do to combat this is to make God first and trade the fear in for faith. That was the greatest challenge for me, and it was a process. It was 2 steps forward and 3 steps backward until I got there, because when we develop negative behavioral patterns, they are very difficult to break. Not impossible, but it requires a titanic effort and a real and sincere desire to be free from these things. And so once I got there, I said, dear God, I can't believe the difference. He saved me, and now he's transformed my life, and now I'm on the other side of this, and I see how this works. So it's all a manipulation, and demonic stronghold is a good word for it, because it is a stronghold. The person is under this level of attack and oppression. So demonic stronghold, attachment, oppression, they all go hand in hand, and they're designed to wear the person down to the point to where they give up the will to fight and then the will to live. And when that happens, a full demonic possession can take place.
Now, you were a rebellious outlaw teenager. When did you get the call from God?
Well, it was, again, so just visualize, and I know you have, and for your viewers, just think about what I've been saying here about how long I endured, this horrific pattern of abuse. So I was conditioned to accept that, and there didn't seem to be any way out of it. And even when we finally left the house, and we had a priest involved for the last 16 months that we lived there, but we finally did leave in December of 1980 after waking up one morning to the pungent odor of burning wires. Every electrical appliance in the house had suddenly burned up. And my mother found my brother's pet guinea pig dead in the cage. All the animals, we had dogs, and pets, and they all either went mad, insane, or were killed or disappeared. And so on this day, after we get up and we discover that everything is burned up, everything that was plugged into the wall was burned up, and my mother discovers the little pet dead. Something changed there in her to where she was able to break the stronghold, and I guess come to the realization that if we didn't get out of there, one of us were going to end up dead. So Richard, her fiance, she called him. Within an hour, he was there with a truck, a big truck, and got us out of there. And we left most of the furniture and decor. We took our personal belongings. We moved in with him. Unfortunately, Noreen, it wasn't long after that 2 tragedies took place. First, my beloved grandmother, Dora Harvey, died from a sudden series of heart attacks at age 64. And then 2 months and 2 days later, my beloved mother, Patricia Bean, died from a cerebral hemorrhage at age 44. And these were the 2 closest people to me in my life, and they were suddenly gone, and it was devastating. That's understating it. It was just absolutely disastrous for me. And so I lied about my age. I quit school in the 8th grade, and I went to work for a construction company. And I was suddenly thrown into a world with men, hardcore men, and that made me a hardcore man. I started drinking, using drugs. I grew up on the streets. I had some very good friends, but I had some arch criminal friends as well. And I hung out with some of the worst people. And a lot of those people are dead or in prison now. And I could have very easily have been there myself. So I lived that way for a long time, which was another pattern of destruction, because I was seeking death, to be honest with you. I was seeking death for many, many years. I didn't care. I didn't care to live anymore. I didn't care about anything. I was kind and cordial to people on the surface, but in the, behind that, in my way of living and in my mind and my spirit, I was just so dark and empty. It just, nothing mattered to me. And I lived that way for so long until one day I had an epiphany. And the epiphany was that I was sick and tired of living that life. I didn't want to do drugs anymore. I didn't want to drink anymore. I didn't want to be violent anymore. And I asked God to help me. And I said to him that, if he would help me and take this from me, that I would give it all to him. I would devote my life to him and do my best to be my best in keeping him first. And it was a miracle, because he took it from me. He just took it. The urge to drink, the urge to use drugs, all of it. He took it. I never went to one AA, NA. He just took it. And I never looked back from there. And as a matter of fact, I see those things as my mortal enemy now. If someone came in here and laid a $50,000 check on my desk right now and said, hey, let's go get drunk or let's go do drugs or whatever, I'd tear that check up and bodily throw the person out. I see it as my mortal enemy because I see what it does. I see what it's designed to do. And so that was a turning point in my life when I was real and sincere in wanting to make God first and serving him. And it wasn't long after that he put this calling on me that I could actually help people, that he would work through me to help people. And I thought, you must have a sense of humor. What can someone like me do to help anybody? And so I resisted for the longest time, because I thought, this is no way. I had such a low opinion of myself that I thought that there was no way that someone like me could do anything in a positive way to help anybody. But the more my faith grew and the closer that I drew to God, certainly the closer he was drawing to me, and I came to understand that it wasn't a joke. He wasn't joking. That perhaps he really could work through me to help people to be free from these things. And that's when I decided to embrace the calling. I engaged in 4 years of serious biblical studies, historical studies, you name it. A few minutes ago I mentioned that I had to quit school in the 8th grade, but God has blessed me with wisdom and knowledge far beyond anything that I could ever imagine in my life. I had to do my part as well. I mean, I studied really hard. I really was sincere in wanting to educate myself. And I'm happy to tell you that, again, God has blessed me in that way with wisdom and knowledge that is just astounding. And so then I became a non-denomination minister, and I started going out to people. And it's been an amazing journey. So the subtitle of that book is Transformation from Victim to Victor, and it's absolutely true. So I was a victim for so many years, but now I'm a victor, and I would never be a victim to anyone or anything again, and I could say that by the power of God working through me. So when I developed this real faith, real and authentic faith, a faith that is stronger than steel, and it doesn't mean that my life is perfect. My life is so good and blessed. I went from having a life that was so bad that it was seeking death to being saved and transformed and having a life now that I wouldn't trade my life with anybody's life on this planet. And I'm so grateful and thankful to God for everything that he has done, for everything that he is doing, and for everything that he's going to do for me in my life and moving forward.
Oh, well, God sure wanted you to be a spiritual warrior, that's for sure. And you're
absolutely.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about a couple of really bad cases so the viewers can hear what goes on?
Yeah, and again, like you mentioned, I've had every type of paranormal supernatural experience there is. And I've had every type of case that you can imagine as well. And one of the very first cases was with a young man in Iowa, and he was under demonic possession. And the poor kid, he had suffered as a child. He was sexually abused as a child, and I find, Noreen, that not in all the cases, but in a majority of the cases, that's the root source of the problem, that there's been some type of child molestation or rape or something like that that has created a level of trauma for these. So unfortunately, when a victim has something like that happen, obviously the perpetrator is demon-filled to commit such wicked and heinous acts. But when that act takes place, the demons leave the perpetrator and go on to the victim, because blood and secretions come out of the adrenal glands and the pineal gland when these wicked and heinous acts take place, and demons are drawn to that like candy. It's a drug to them. They love it. So they'll stay attached to the victim until someone like me comes along, and it's not that I'm anything special, it's just the power of God working through me to evict them. And so in this young man's case, that was the root cause, and he was very angry at God. He had been picked on in school and bullied and things of that nature, and he got very angry and bitter towards God, and then decided that he was going to make a deal with the devil. And from that moment forward, he got involved with a satanic cult coven. He was participating in ritual animal sacrifice and placing curses and spells on people. He was very deep into this. And then, and this is why I also say to people, if you think that you're going to make a deal with the devil and be in partnership with him, you're sadly mistaken. He will use, abuse, and then when he's done using you, he will throw you away like yesterday's garbage. And so that's what happened to this young man, and the devil started sending demons in to physically attack him. And then it went from physical attack to demonic possession, and then he, while under the influence of demonic possession, started attacking his family members. And then I was contacted by his mother, who was just at her, wit's end. She was exasperated by everything. She was exhausted. They were all fear-stricken, of course. And so I responded. Next thing you know, I arrived there, and God worked through me to help that young man. But it was a titanic struggle, and that was among the first batch of my cases. And he did not. It was a back and forth battle for hours, because he really didn't want to be free at first. And then God continued to work through me to not only wear those demonic forces down, but then to give him an understanding of what he was involved in, how bad it was, and how dangerous it was for him and for his family and anybody that would come into contact with him. And then, eventually he submitted before God, and I was able to, perform the exorcism, and God worked through me to evict those evil forces and then baptize him. And in a lot of these cases, especially in the demonic possession cases, I always recommend a baptism afterwards. Whether the person has been baptized previously or not, it really doesn't matter, because when those demonic forces are evicted, it is of the utmost importance to cleanse the temple of that person in mind, body, and spirit. And so the last piece of the puzzle, after the deliverance exorcism takes place, is baptism. And therefore, after that's taken care of, the person is presented to God as blessed, sealed, sanctified, purified, cleansed, and made holy before him. And then, after it's over with, I have to sit down as a life coach a counselor to put a game plan together for this person's life and moving forward to ensure that they keep the doors closed so no demons can return. Because if a person is delivered in that way and their temple is clean, if they do anything to open the doorways for those demons to come back, then 7 more than the original, 7 more wicked than the original will come back and manifest within that person.
Do you ever, have you checked up on this person since was this a long time ago? Do you ever check up on them?
Yes, that was in the beginning, and yes, and I still hear from that person and others as well. So, as you know, I'm extremely busy. I help people from all over the world. I'm up till 6:30 a.m., sometimes 7 a.m. every morning before I get to bed, and I'm helping people from all over the world. I could be on a Skype session with somebody from Australia, India, you name it, UK, wherever. I mean, 55 countries and counting that God has worked through me to help people. So through it all, though, God helps me to be able to manage, to be able to keep in contact with most of these people. And they can always come back to me when they feel like they're having a bad time or whatever. I also have continuous sessions with some as sort of like, I guess it's a security blanket for them per se, being there to give them blessed assurance that they're okay, they're going to be okay, and it is normal for us to have issues and challenges that come up in life. That's life. The difference between the person with faith and the person that does not have faith is the person who has real and authentic faith. When the challenges and issues come along, we have blessed assurance that God is with us and for us, and He will help us to meet those challenges and overcome them. For the person that does not have faith, they cannot do that. They get swallowed up because they don't have any faith. So that's part of this as well, the life coach aspect, spiritual advisor, however you would want to label it. It is being a source of encouragement to these people to move forward. I just received a wonderful message from a family that I helped in Cairo, Egypt, 10 years ago. And I'd kept in contact with them, but I hadn't heard from them lately. It had been probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 months since I'd heard anything from them. And one of the family members reached out to me just a few days ago. And she said, we were talking about you. We started reflecting back on some things and how we were under demonic. And this family is Muslim. And this, again, shows you the power of God that supersedes any religion and any belief, faith, belief, or whatever. They had this moment of reflection and started talking about me and how they were under, one of the family members was under demonic possession, and they were all being affected. And God worked through me to deliver them, her and them, and they've been doing great ever since. It's been over 10 years. And she reached out with this wonderful statement, a testimony about how God worked through me to help them, about how well they're doing now, and I'm so thankful to God for that. And it just made my day, and it always makes my day, Noreen. I probably have 1,000 testimonials like that from people from all over the world, and it makes my day to know that God actually worked through me to help someone, to help them to move forward, and then they move forward and have a quality of life. I recall other times. One time was a family in France. They did not speak English. I do not speak French. They were under demonic attack. And even though we had a language barrier, God still worked through me when I invoked His power over the situation and the family, and God did deliver them from evil, and they have been fine ever since. So it's just absolutely miraculous.
Are all your cases as bad as that? Now, I want to ask you something. There are people that get attachments. But they're not as bad as some of the cases that you describe. But they do get attachments. Do you ever get somebody that thinks they have a demonic not attachment, but they're oppressed or they're possessed, but really it's just an attachment. Can you tell the difference between an attachment and a possession?
Oh, absolutely. And I've, dealt with, again, I don't even know the number anymore. It's just so many people, and it just continues. But I would guess there would be in the low thousands that God's worked through me to help. But yeah, a lot of cases. So it's a very small percentage, I would say, of the most severe, the things that I've described. That's a small percentage. And by and large, most of the cases would fit into that category, to where people do have that attachment, and not to say that that's not serious, but it is not the full-blown demonic possession, and then all of the horrible attacks and things are taking place. However, we cannot downplay an attachment, because that is part of a demonic stronghold, and it is designed to kill, rob, and destroy. The devil would love nothing more than to have the demons that he's sent to that person to be able to aid and abet in the person, killing themselves or committing murder or other wicked and heinous crimes, because they felt like they were, too far gone to be saved. I've encountered many people like that. I've encountered, and just the other day, as a matter of fact, there was a lady that contacted me for help that was considering suicide, and happened to be flipping through the TV channels and saw me on one of the TV shows and reached out, and God worked through me to deliver her. That's happened so many times with so many different people that were really ready to commit suicide, and they would happen to see me on TV and then reach out, and next thing you know, I'm on a plane going to them, and God's working through me to save them. One memorable encounter took place late one night. I would have to say this was probably about 8 or more years ago. I was answering messages on the computer, and I got this instant message that came in saying, Bill, it was great knowing you. Thank you so much, this kind of stuff. And I said to the guy, I said, well, where are you going? What's going on? And he said he couldn't deal with life anymore. His girlfriend had died the week before, and the grief was overwhelming. He couldn't deal with it. He wanted to go join her in death. He was going to commit suicide. And I put my number on the thing and said, call me right now. And it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And he called. And so he was just wailing, just crying uncontrollably. It was gut-wrenching. And so I'm praying over him, because he's serious. He wants to take his life. He's had enough. And so while I'm praying for him, at the same time, in my mind, I'm asking God to give me a word to give to this man. Please, Father, give me something to give to him that's going to stop this, that's going to stop him from wanting to commit suicide. So sure enough, as this is going back and forth, I felt that God had given me something to give to him. And I said his name. I said, look, stop. Just stop. I mean, he was wailing uncontrollably. I said, stop it. Just stop. I said, God has a word for me to give to you. Now listen to what I'm saying to you. I believe that he has said to me to tell you that you are a warrior, and you cannot do this because you have work left to do on this earth. And so when I said that to him, there was a pause. I guess he thought about it, considered what I said. He said, "What? You're right. You're right. I am a warrior. I can't do this." And then I heard this big clunk. He was going to shoot himself in the head while being on the phone with me. He put the gun down, and it was a big clunk.
God. Oh, you saved him.
Absolutely.
Oh, my God.
Just miraculous. And I was so relieved and so thankful. And he too is doing very well. He's still alive and well and doing well and moving forward in his life. And I'm forever grateful to God for just making the whole thing to happen and then working through me to save it.
Oh my God, what a wonderful story! Oh my God. Okay, so do you want to say anything else? Do you have anything else you want to share with us?
Well, also, and I don't know, are we coming up on time? How much time do we have left?
All night.
Okay, I just don't want to go too far. I'll probably stay with you. It's 10:21 now. I'll probably leave you around 10:30, 10:35. But I want to touch for a few minutes, if you don't mind, about the UFO experiences and the UFO aspect in this, and why has this happened? I have no idea. You mentioned that photograph in 1975 of my mother with what looks to be alien beings in the photograph. The first sighting that I had of a UFO was with my family in 1977. At that house, we were, my dad had come home for a visit, and it was summer of 1977. It was somewhere around, I guess, 8 p.m., between 8 and 9 p.m., something like that. And the power went out in the house. My dad goes out to see what's going on. He thought that a car struck a utility pole or something. He comes back in. My mother has candles now lit in the house, and he comes in, collects us, and we go out through the back door. And we go out there in the backyard to witness this object that's hovering in the sky. And so where the house was located, there was a ravine. So I would say probably 40, would it be 40 feet? I guess that would be a guesstimate, 40 feet or so, maybe 40 yards, now thinking about it, from where the back door was to where down in the ravine, there was this utility, like a little substation shack down there in the ravine. It was a very long and deep ravine behind the backyard that stretched for several miles. And the object was hovering silently at a very low altitude over the substation and a utility pole that was behind the substation. And other families had come out in their yards, and so our family and other families were out there watching this object as it silently hovered. And I'd say it was out there for close to an hour. And you'd see a gentle wobble from side to side, no sound at all, brilliant white. And then it just started to gain an altitude and slowly head off to the north. And when it did, all the power came back on in the home. So that's where it began. And so I'd had, from 77, I guess, up to 1995, I had sporadic things happen that I thought were, these craft, these unidentified flying objects. They're known as UAPs now. And then in January of 1995, for whatever reasons, I still don't know to this day why, but I started to have regular sightings, visitations, interactions with unidentified flying objects and non-human looking beings. And so it was going on a regular basis between 1995 and 2008. And I've had just about every type of experience that you can imagine in that phenomena as well. And I've come to the conclusion, I've written 2 books on it, that it is all linked. I've had the experiences with the Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Sabe creatures, still do to this day. UFOs, still do to this day. It is all interconnected. So, in the Bible, there are many scriptures in the Bible that mention UFOs as clouds, pillars of a cloud, flying rolls, flying scrolls, disc. It's all there. Psalm 68:17 says the chariots of God are 20,000. Now, why does Yahweh create, and why did he create these flying chariots? I have no idea. that's beyond my understanding. But I do believe that he is the source for them. And furthermore, when Satan and a third of the angels were cast out of heaven, they were cast out in those flying craft. So I believe that the divine chariots of Yahweh are called Merkabah. And so when the devil and a third of the angels were cast out of heaven, they were cast out in those flying craft that became Vamana, that came down here to earth, took human women, had unnatural sexual relations with them, producing a hybrid offspring of giants called the Nephilim. The Nephilim were wicked, they were man-eaters, and they also had unnatural sex acts with beasts in the field. Apes, bears, dogs, wolves, monkeys, you name it. That is the Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Sabe creatures. They are the offspring of the offspring. And they are every bit as much supernatural as they are flesh and blood. So these beings can disappear, they can mimic sounds, they can do anything. And I know this because I've had personal experience with them. So I see what they can do and I know what they do. They also can terrorize people. Now there are some that are very docile and peaceful, and they don't want anything to do with humans, and they are out there and they try to stay away from humans. But there are others that are sinister, and some, I'm sorry to say, I believe are man-eaters, but some are very sinister and tie in with the demonic aspects of launching these spiritual attacks on people. And there are eyewitness accounts also of when people come too close or in proximity, they suddenly lose their senses. And they'll either get some type of frequency that comes in that shuts them down, or they've just totally lost sense of everything. Their mind is just like scrambled. This is very much supernatural because these beings are supernatural.
Yes, I've always believed that Bigfoot was could go into other dimensions. I always believed that.
It's absolutely true, Noreen. So there's so much more to this than meets the eye, and we're merely just scratching the surface, because if it's true that a human uses a small percentage of brain power, then let's say it's 10%. I've heard that said before. If that's true, then that means there's 90% of something going on around us that we can't perceive.
Well, the thing is, they've never found a body. They've never found any bone remains. So where do they go?
Well, again, now this would be purely speculation on my part, but my theory would be, perhaps, if these creatures do die, and they have a physical death, then perhaps these some of these UFO objects come down and collect their remains. Or another theory could be that when they pass, the whole thing just vanishes into, carcass, remains, vanishes into a dimensional portal to get that out of the human physical realm.
That's interesting. I've never heard that before. That's a great theory.
And, there have been reports of some of these, and I don't call them creatures, I call them beings. There have been reports of some of them having these white, like a crystal ball type of thing in their hands, and disappearing with that crystal ball in their hands. So, again, they're every bit as much supernatural as they are flesh and blood creature. I had an experience. This was in 2022. I think it was June 2022. It was a hot summer day. I was outside. Now, where I live at, my building is surrounded, 3/4 of the building is surrounded by woods. And it is a densely wooded area that stretches for miles and miles in many different directions. One of the directions that it stretches to, very interesting, is all the way up to Fort Meade, NSA, and which is probably about 20 minutes from where I currently live. And so the wooded area, this embankment area where I'm currently at, stretches all the way up past there. And there have been many reports of these beings, these Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Sabe beings, being seen and witnessed. And so on this one particular day, and I've had many experiences with them here and on the behalf of clients that I've gone to in various places around the country. And on this day, I'm waxing my car. And then I hear down in the ravine, which is probably 50 feet? Yeah, maybe 50 feet, something like that, from where my car was. I hear something very heavy walking down there. And you could hear the snap and the crack and the pops of the branches and all that kind of stuff. So it alerted me. And so I continued to do what I was doing. And then I heard 3 knocks. 4. Clack, 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 clack. Mm-hmm. So I heard that, and then I heard what sounded like, just imagine pieces of slate. It sounded like someone was taking slate, rubbing it together, and then clack, 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 clack. Rubbing it together, clack, 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 clack. And this is right down in the ravine. Now, I've stopped doing what I'm doing, and I'm alerted to this. It certainly had my attention. So it would do it, it would stop. It would do it, so whoever or whatever that was certainly trying to get my attention. Then I said, okay, I'm listening, but I went back to continuing to wipe my vehicle down. Noreen,
yes.
You would not believe this.
What?
Something invisible. I could not see it. But it approached me and was within 20 feet of me. Clack, 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 clack,
oh,
clack.
No.
I can't see it. It's right
God.
there. I can't see it.
Oh,
and then, so now I'm not wiping anything. I'm just looking at something that I can't see, but I'm hearing the sound.
Oh my God, my.
And then it retreats backwards and does it again. So I would say the closest that it came to me was within 20 feet. Then it retreated backwards and did it again, and then even further back and did it again. So they were definitely trying to get my attention. There have been days, one day I came out, there was a potato-sized rock that was carved into a shape of a heart that was placed on the bumper of my truck.
Oh, they did that.
And then another time I came out, and there was this circular woven, it's like they take these branches or something and they weave them.
Yes, they do that.
Yep,
they do.
Yep, that was out there.
They love you. See?
Wasn't that amazing? Yeah. And so that's why I say, I think it's like people, that there are types that are very peaceful and docile and loving, but yet there are other types that are, just absolutely evil, but that's the same way people are as well. And so I've had some very good and blessed experiences with them, but again, I've also had some experiences to where I went into the woods because they were stealing the chickens and livestock from a family, and they were terrorizing the family. And I was then binding and rebuking and commanding them to depart.
Did they?
So I've had, all those types of experiences in and on different spectrums. Another time I came out, and this was at my home, came out of the building, and this was probably about 4 years ago, I would guess. And I saw this small tree that something had pulled the tree out of the ground and placed it over top of, outside of the building where I live. There's a swimming pool on the outside and one on the inside. And so where the swimming pool is on the outside, there's like these generator types of things. I don't know if they're filters or whatever they are, or backup generators or something. And so I imagine that one of these beings pulled the tree out of the ground, laid it over top of those things. And again, this is right where I've got to, where my vehicle's parked. I'm parked on the lot facing that, so there's no way I could miss it. And so I went over to investigate. I also got a saw and cut the tree up to clear it from laying on the generators, and I saw footprints. And the footprints went right from huge. They were 16 inches long and 8 inches wide, and at that time I probably weighed about 250, 260 pounds. I've lost weight since then, but I could not. So I'm 6'3", about 250, 260 at that time. I could not sink my foot into the ground like those footprints were sunk into the ground. They led from right there where the tree was positioned, going down the embankment, and the strides were 36 inches apart, and one of the strides was like 43 inches apart.
Oh, wow. That was a big one.
Yep.
Oh, my goodness.
Absolutely amazing. So I've had a plethora of those types of experiences, and praise God again. Oh, another time I came in from helping a family in Maryland, and it was late at night. I pulled into the parking lot. I got out of my car, and all of a sudden, now nobody's around, Noreen. This is late at night. This is after midnight. Nobody's out. Nobody's around. And I get out of the car, and I'm making a left to get on the sidewalk. I'm going left to head for the door to go into my building, and I hear...
Yes, they whistle. Yes. Yes,
absolutely.
They do.
Yeah.
Oh my. So now, is this a different location that you've ever been before where you got the whistle and the hearts?
This is my home. This is
you're getting this at your home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
It's amazing.
Why don't they appear to you? I wonder why they won't. Why don't you talk to it and say, show yourself?
Well, I've thought about that. I really have. But then on the same token, I thought, okay, should I just keep my distance and let this be the way it is? Because, if it progresses into something, I certainly don't want it to, I want it to be a blessed experience. I don't want it to go sideways, that's for sure. And so I guess I've just been content to leave it the way that it is. And although I will tell you this, that when I found that heart and the other thing, I thanked them. So I put my hand up, and I actually put my hand over my heart, and it was facing the woods, and I thanked them. So I did have a form of communication to say thank you, but I've sort of tried to keep it at a distance because I'm really not sure. And here's another aspect of this, as if what I've said to you isn't crazy enough, but it's all true. The truth is stranger than fiction.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I've also, since 1995, been under a form of surveillance.
Yes.
And that is black helicopters, black vans, phones being tapped, all that kind of stuff. And I just wonder, because the black copters always come around when I'm having some type of experience, and whether that is UFOs or the Bigfoot creatures or whatever it may be, these copters are there, and it's like they're surveilling. And so that has been a part of my pause as well, because I don't know who's in the copters. I don't know who's in the vans. Are they government agencies? Well, very well could be. Are they non-human beings participating with government agencies? That's plausible as well. And so I'm trying to be very careful for all parties involved to ensure the safety of everybody. But I'll tell you, Noreen, I've had experiences with those copters.
Yes.
To where it could have been dangerous. I've been on dark roads alone on the road at like 2, 3, 4 a.m. in the morning. Nobody else is on the road on these secluded roads, and these copters or UFOs come over me. And, I've had many divine experiences, but I've also had experiences to where I felt like my life was in danger. And it's very easy for something bad to happen when you're on one of those lonely roads.
Oh, yeah.
And you're the only car on the road at that time. So you have to really rely on your faith and having that blessed assurance that God's going to keep me safe no matter what. And he really has, and I thank him and praise him for it.
Yeah. I wonder why you. What did you do? I
don't know. And it goes right back to that photo that we discussed in the beginning, because in the photo there appears to be a Bigfoot-looking face, in that photograph next to the gray alien. And so what is this? Why is this? Who am I? Why has, God chosen this path for me? Why has he opened these doorways for me to have this level of exposure to other types of realities and beings that most people, probably 99.9% of the people on this planet have not had these types of experiences, and certainly not on a regular basis. So why is it? I don't know. Somebody, and of course God, because he created me, he knows, but there's somebody else out there too, and it could be the ones in the copters. I don't know. They know something about me that I don't know. Whatever the case may be, I'm just thankful that God continues to work through me to help people. And I'm also thankful for the experiences, because even though through the horrible, terrible experiences that I have endured, there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is to have me to be in this position right now of understanding, and that helps me to be able to relate to people and their suffering.
God, what a life you've had. I'm so sorry for all your sadness and troubles for you growing up, but you turned out to be a good boy.
Praise God for that, and thank you, Noreen. Yeah, and it's miraculous. It truly is. So I tell people, you are looking at and listening to a living, walking, talking, breathing miracle from God, because he truly did save me and then transform my life. And now I have such a good and blessed life and a peaceful life, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful for everything. I can never thank him and praise him enough. So when I have these experiences, as a matter of fact, my most recent UFO sighting was on January 1st. The new year came in with this blue, it was like an electric blue colored object that was in the eastern sky here. And I look out, I heard a sound out there, and they do this. They will create these sounds or something to get my attention. One time, they shined a beam of light that came through my office window right on my arm.
No.
And,
Hey, wait a minute. You don't have a chip in your arm, do you?
I don't think so. I hope not. Well, I did. The next time I come on, we'll talk about that, because in 1997, I had 3 of those chips in me that I coughed up, and I was near death. And God saved my life from that as well. So yes, I've had those experiences, but I pray that no more of those types of things are in me. But there is some reason for this. I had another occasion where an object was out there, and it sounded like a trumpet. A trumpet was blasting. This was like 1:30 a.m. in the morning, and it sounded like a trumpet, and it was in the key of B. And I go to the window, and I look, and there's this huge craft out there sitting right in the sky, right in front of me. So they do these things to get my attention. Who are they? I have no idea, but I can tell you this. I have seen many different types of non-human looking beings. I have seen angels fully manifest. I have seen demons fully manifest. And I have seen these non-human looking beings also, and fully manifest. I've had communication with them. I have been taken to other places. Why? I have no idea. And I'm just thankful again that God is protecting me and keeping me safe, that he has bestowed this mission and calling on me to help others. So I rejoice in that. So I'm not afraid of anything. So if a copter landed right here, right now, I could go out there and engage them, not having any fear and knowing that God's with me and for me. And if God's with us and for us, then nothing or no one can stand against us. We have to have that level of faith, what I call warrior mode. So if we trade the fear-based, trauma-based way of thinking and living in for what I call warrior mode, which is faith, strength, and courage, then life will change. You will have no idea how great life can be. I'm a living example of it.
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea that my life could be this blessed and this good. And so if God would do this for me, he'll do this for any of you out there that may be going through a bad time and suffering. And if you are, reach out. Yes, I'm very busy. Yes, I'm constantly busy with people, but never too busy to help somebody. God always helps me to make a way to be able to manage my schedule to help people. So you can visit BillJBean.com. You can email me directly from the site. I will get back to you as quickly as I can. We'll get you scheduled for spiritual deliverance, and then you can have the chains broken off of you and you can move forward in what I call warrior mode. And same thing, if you want to get a copy of the new book, go to BillJBean.com. There is a button there for Amazon right now. I'm selling it currently on Amazon. I'm waiting for a shipment to come in to where I have the actual books in hand, and then I'll have a button for those of you who, if you want a signed copy, I will personally sign it and personally send it out to you. But for right now, you can go to BillJBean.com, click on the button, and get your copy from Amazon.
Oh yeah, it's a must read. It's you won't believe it until you start reading the book. You will not put it down. I guarantee you that. It's fabulous. Bill, thank you so much for coming on the show. Let's make another 13 show. And just think of what you want to talk about. You're always welcome on the show. And I am so blessed and honored to have your friendship and to always have you as a guest on the show. I'm truly blessed.
The feeling is mutual. I thank you so much. You're a great friend, and thank you so much for having me back, regularly. And I look forward to our 13th show, and we will have lots of information to discuss, and there'll be different topics and different things. And I want to thank all of your listeners and viewers as well. And again, God bless you, Noreen, and your family. May 2024 be a fantastic year for you. And for your viewers and listeners, God bless all of you as well. And I pray the same, that 2024 will be a fantastic year for you also.
Thank you.
Just keep the faith. I guess this is the easiest way I could say it. Try, if you're out there and you don't have any faith, and you might think I'm a crazy man for saying what I say, test it out. Just stop yourself and say, okay, let me consider this. I'm not going to dismiss what he's saying. Let me consider it. Let me try it, and let's see if it can work for me. If you do that, it'll be the greatest decision that you ever make in your life. And if you develop a real authentic relationship with God, you are going to start to see blessings coming into your life, and you're going to start to see positive things coming in. So that's my best advice to all of you out there. And again, if you're under demonic attack, spiritual attack, don't hesitate to reach out and contact me, and I'll do anything and everything that I can by the power of God working through me to help you. So much love, and God bless you, Noreen, and we look forward to the next time.
Thank you. God bless you, Bill. Thank you so much. Good night. Thank you.
We'll talk
and
soon.
hey, Bill, you stayed almost 2 hours.
Well, that never ends either, because we always have so much to talk about. So if I were to say, I'll be here an hour, it's going to turn into 2 hours anyway. So that's all right. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you.
Good night, Noreen. God bless you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Too. Good night. Bill's my favorite guest. I'm really, I'm not a salesperson. I tell the truth, and I'm telling you, there's so much in that book. I'm going to buy, he sent me the PDF, but I'm going to buy the book. I want to sit by the fire and read the book. It's amazing. I read that 14 pages. I couldn't put it down. I think I read it in 15 minutes. It was unbelievable what he talks about and what has happened to him. He just touched a little bit on what has happened to him. Okay, so let me see how I can get this off of here. Where is it? Oh, where are you? Here we go. Anyway, thanks everyone for coming and watching the show. I really appreciate it. And let me move over here. Hold on. Come on. I want to thank you all so much. Happy New Year to you all. I have another show scheduled now. I hope you guys don't mind. I am so excited because Serenity Jen is a extremely it's not that she's talented, but she knows her stuff. She's a remote viewer, a clairvoyant, and she's unbelievable. And she does readings and people just rave about her because she knows, it just comes to her. I don't even tell her who we're having on the show, and as we're talking, it's coming to her. So and I hope you guys don't mind, but Drew Beeson, he wrote a book on the Zodiac, which there's all kinds of theories on who he really is, but nobody knows. And D.B. Cooper, they've never found his body. They don't know what happened to him. Remember we did a show on that? Well, he's written 2 books, and Drew wants to know what happened to, and we all want to know who the Zodiac, and why did he do what he did, and why did he have this mask that he used to wear, and why did he only go after like teenagers and couples. And I hope you don't mind, but I want her to do on January 11th. I'm having her come back, and I'm having Drew come on because he wrote the books, and he'll give the stories to her. She doesn't know ahead of time, and he'll have better questions to ask her than me. Do you mind if we do the Zodiac and D.B. Cooper? Because I'd like to know myself too what happened to them. Anyway, so that's it. I've got more shows I'm going to schedule. And anyway, again, thank you. And thank you so much for my mods, Chippa, Terry, and Renee. I love you guys. My show's been 16 years, but my show has been on other... I've been Paranormal Zone TV for 16 years. And most of that time, I think I met the girls in 2006, I think. That's when I started to go on Live Sci-Fi in 2006. Anyway, so let me do some shout outs and anyway, there's so many cases I want to have her because, gosh, what was that one there's so many unsolved cases that on shows that we did, and I'd love to know what happened to these people. And I can't think of it. Anyway, so let me do some shout outs. And like I said, I appreciate all of you. And those that are watching that may not be in the chat room, if you would please subscribe to my channel, I appreciate it. Since I think this last month, December, I gained 150 new subscribers. So people are watching the shows. They may not be in the chat room, but they are subscribing, and I really appreciate that. So if you hear me and you're watching the show, please subscribe to the channel. I'd really like to get my subscriptions up. I've been doing this for a long time. Anyway, so with that one, let me do some shout outs, okay? Of course, my shout outs to Chippa, Terry, and Renee, Andrew and the Gnomes, Nicole Johnson, Davy Thomas, and I know Tall House is out there because I saw him. My friend from Scotland. I always forget what time you are, but I think it's like in the morning maybe 3 o'clock in the morning. It's late now. Let's see, who else? Who's left in the chat room? Thayer. I don't know if Stephanie Ann Stevens is watching. Alpha was there. Amy the artist. Lynn Bowling. Oh, wow, Lynn. I haven't seen you for a while. Who else? Who's left? Cusp. I'm glad Bill is one of my favorites. He has talked about so many things on the show. And we did do a show on the Men in Black. And we talked about Bigfoot and aliens and what else did we talk about? Well, and the Men in Black that were following him. And like he said, they're still following him. So I want him to come back on the show. He has so much to talk about, so many things to share with us. Let's see, who's left in the chat room? Sun. I don't know if you're still in the chat room or not. Let's see, I'm going back. I'm looking at the chat room, going back. Come on. Danny. Oh, yeah, Danny Rolling Ghostface. He always posts a comment before the show starts. Lisa Scarrett. Hello, Lisa. Anybody else left? Ski. What a great man Bill Bean is. Anybody else in the chat room? Come on. Oh, Nedbit said she was in. Who else? Anybody else? We had a nice crowd tonight. Oh, Sacramento Paranormal. Keith Orion. Keith Orion. Betty Kitty's Corner. I could have showed more pictures, but I didn't know what Bill was going to talk about. Okay, so I'm going to go now. Have a great week, and I'll see you on Thursday, January. Oh, Sheila Pelican. Yeah. Tracy Clark. I didn't know Bill was going to talk about tonight, and I have all his pictures. I have tons of folders. Oh, Andrew, honey, take that money away, honey. Don't give me any money. I don't get it. Can you cancel it? Thank you so much. That is so sweet of you. I don't know how to get that off of there. I don't get any money. Google takes it. I don't get any of it. It's a phony thing that they do. But if you can take it off of there, I wish you would. I don't want your money. And I don't know how to get that money thing off of there. And that's so sweet of you, Andrew. That's really sweet, but I don't get the money. So I don't want anybody giving me anything. I really don't. They monetize all my videos. I don't get one dime of it. I don't get nothing. And they monetize my videos and I can't stop them. And they already said, we are going to monetize whether you like it or not. And we get no money. They get it all. So when you see all these commercials on there, I didn't put them on. I did not agree to it, but they do it anyway. And they take all the money. So YouTube is not a money maker. How can I get that off of there? I don't know how to do it. Well, that was really sweet, but I should have told you. I'm going to have to find out how to get that off of my channel. Okay, so I'm going to go now, and I love you guys a lot, and like I said, I really appreciate all of you, and some of you are from other countries, like Tollcross, and one of my mods, I think, is from Australia or New Zealand. I can't remember. I'm sorry. I love you. So I know some of you are watching from other countries, and I appreciate you staying up or early in the morning, whatever it is. Tracy Clark, hi. All right, so I'm going to go now. I love you guys, and I will see you on January 11th, and hopefully we'll get some answers from Serenity Jenny to who the Zodiac and why he did that, what he did, and what the heck happened to D.B. Cooper. He's the one, he's the one that got on an airplane, and he asked for ransom money, and he had hijacked the plane, asked for money, and he was in a suit, and he dove off the plane in a suit. And they never heard from him again. They don't know what happened. They never found any money. They did find some money, a little bit of money, but the rest of it, nobody knows what happened to it, and nobody found him. So I would love to know what happened to him. And I know Drew would love to find out too, because he wrote the books on him. Okay, so I'm going to go now. I'm going to stop talking. And I love you guys. Going to have a cup of tea and a tuna sandwich. I'm hungry. So I love you guys. It's, it's been it's 8 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Love you guys. Good night. And I'll see you on the 11th. Thank you. Love you. Good night. Be safe out there, and make sure you get your shots. The flu's going around. They say it's really bad. Take care of yourself, but be safe. Love you. Good night.